What's up? What's up? Your boy Domuto. We're back with another video today. We're watching What If Dragon Ball Daima Was Canon by Carthu no Dojo. And yeah, let's get into it. Daima was cool show. Animation carried, but it's a cool little story. Great fights as well. So I think Daima, was it Daima Canon? I don't know. I heard they were gonna implement it in the actual story of Dragon Ball, but we'll see. Hopefully Dragon Ball Super does come back eventually. And yeah, let's get into it.
There's a lot of continuity issues with Dragon Ball Super, which is the current main continuity of Dragon Ball at this point. And you probably don't need me to tell you that. It actually has so many continuity issues that I made a main channel video discussing what I believe to be the truth about what it was intended to actually be due to all the issues it has in its continuity with Dragon Ball Super. But in this video, I want to show how easy it would have actually been to make Daima canon if Toei and Toriyama actually wanted it to be. Let's talk about one of the most notable and easy to notice continuity issues in Dragon Ball Daima, and that's Shin and Kibito. Shin and Kibito are supposed to be fused at this point in the story. That's because Dragon Ball Daima takes place roughly a year after the Buu Saga, and true. We know this because of Trunks' birthday party. That's the start of the series. He's 9 here, he was 8 in the Buu Saga. Makes sense. So the issues arise when you find out they're defused at this birthday party and did it by going inside of Buu and using the same bad air method that Goku mentions as a theory could have defused Vegito in the Buu Saga. Now this obviously can't work with Dragon Ball Super, and that's because Kibito Kai is still around in Battle of Gods. He only gets defused afterwards by using the Namekian Dragon Balls to wish himself to be separated again. Now you may think the solution here is to actually keep the characters fused, but I disagree. I think the wish to have everyone turned into younger versions of themselves could have had them split temporarily. You see, if you have the wish to make everybody be younger, well, there is no younger Kibito Kai. There's only a younger Kibito and Supreme Kai, Shin, who would eventually become Kibito Kai. So the wish could inadvertently defuse them. Obviously, you'd have to change Glorio's wish at the end of the series, but if you have him make them be the way they were before, then I think you have a good argument for them refusing at the end of the series as well, and maybe not defusing again until they have the opportunity with the Namekian Dragon Balls later on in the story. Now, I'm personally biased towards this, because in the trailers, we saw that Shin and Kibito were defused already when they were turned into kids, and so I came up with this theory during the trailers. But I think it actually is just the easiest, simplest way to still have Shin be a separate and main.
Yeah, that's one part about being canon. Like, nigga, you gotta stay consistent. Come on, R.I.P. Toriyama and whoever wrote the story. I don't think he did this by himself, but yeah, you gotta stay consistent in the story, man. Damn, Kibito. Like,
fixture of the story without having to worry about Dragon Ball Super's continuity. The next issue is the multiverse, and that's because the main cast, the cast from Earth specifically, can't know about the multiverse before Battle of Gods in Goku's case, and for most of the others, before the Universe 6 tournament, if I'm remembering correctly. I do a lot of these videos pretty off the cuff. But around that time period is when everyone learns there's a multiverse. So having them all find out there's a multiverse in this series, which takes place before Dragon Ball Super, if they were in the same continuity, that's a pretty big issue. But I don't think the solution is to just cut the lore drops in conversation overall. I think the interesting lore should be explored and explained in the series. It's a good place for that lore to actually fit into the story in a pretty natural way. So instead of having Shin explain this to the Earth cast, why don't we change it so he explains it to Glorio? Maybe Glorio wants to know how Shin escaped the Demon Realm, why he left the Demon Realm, how he became a god, and maybe you could even make it a further plot point that the Demon Realm government is suppressing this information from the beings within the Demon Realm, the demons themselves. That way they don't get any ideas of ascending to godhood in the outside world and trying to leave and escape. And I think it actually works with this narrative that the Demon Realm was segregated and oppressed in a lot of ways before Goku and the gang rescued it. So I think it still fits really well into the story, but it doesn't break the continuity that Goku and the others really can't know about the multiverse or any real deeper lore about the multiverse and how it's structured and all those things. Now, the next one is not really a continuity issue. I just wanted to talk about it here. People have talked about this a lot. There's a mistimed scene where it makes it seem like Shin was the first Supreme Kai in Universe 7. We all know that's not true. We've literally met a Supreme Kai older than him, and he's still around. So I think the real answer here is to just swap where the visuals are and have Shin, when he says, I became a Supreme Kai later, that's when he shows all the current Supreme Kai who are in the multiverse at this point.
Okay.
Just to really set home that
Okay,
he
I
is
get
not
that.
the first, even though these visuals are mistimed with what he's saying. All right, so this is a pretty easy one, and it's even one that I discussed in the main video, and that's Goku being the strongest in the universe. And obviously Shin would be referring to Universe 7. If you didn't know, Shin is the one who says this. I think it's a very simple fix because Shin should know Beerus based on a lot of current Dragon Ball Super information. I think it's just a very obvious. You just have him say mortal. He is the strongest mortal in Universe 7. No need to elaborate. No need to say to Goku, there's a god stronger than him. You just say he's the...
It's not like it's fucking GT where Beerus really don't exist in GT. So this is Super's out. So Beerus exists. So why are you saying he's the strongest in the universe and you know about Beerus? Yeah.
Strongest mortal because he's immortal. That's fine. And if there's anything to expand upon that, I don't know, maybe a god of destruction, maybe an angel. Well, that can be discovered later on by Goku himself, and would be discovered later on by Goku himself because we know that, right? Obviously, we know Dragon Ball Super takes place after Daima if they are one continuity. All right, the next one is less a continuity issue with Dragon Ball Super and more just a continuity issue overall. And I also just think it's very annoying because it's the easiest thing to avoid. And this is Piccolo speaking Namekian. Piccolo saying he forgot how to speak Namekian might actually be one of the most annoying things I've ever heard. And it's really because of a few factors, but one is Piccolo spoke Namekian in the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai, and that's after hundreds of years on Earth at least. Then you have Kami, who also could speak Namekian, again, after hundreds of years on Earth at least. And they still know the language well enough to have a conversation in it to each other at the tournament. Now remember, those two fuse, but also Piccolo fuses with Nail, someone who grew up on planet Namek and clearly grew up speaking that language as his primary language, very likely. So after absorbing Nail, fusing with Kami, and his own knowledge of the Namekian language, I think there's no way he lost it in a few decades after holding on to it for hundreds of years, as well as gaining extra knowledge of it only a few decades ago. Now, I think there's a very easy solution to this issue, and it's really simple. Just make it so he doesn't know the password. Oh, you could speak Namekian. Well, you don't know the password, do you? And he goes, no, I don't know the password. So Neva has to join them on the trip. It's a very simple, easy solution, and it doesn't take away from Piccolo's abilities that he's been shown to have and his own...
Man, I'm still mad what they did to Piccolo in the Tournament of Power. The nigga has sensitive hearing, and he get kicked out by a bug. He gets beat by a bug, and have Android 17 say he got sensitive hearing. Like, come on.
Knowledge and his own understanding of his heritage and language. I don't know. It just feels bad. Feels bad to take something away from a character, especially when it doesn't feel like it makes sense within the context of what he's had before. Okay, so the next one is actually another issue with continuity, and that's the time scale of things. They keep saying thousands of years for things, and that's just too short. I don't know what Toei was thinking when they probably wrote a lot of these scenes. I'm assuming, again, Toriyama oversaw a lot of Daima, was very heavily involved in Daima, but I don't know how much of the minutia he got involved with writing and changing. But we know from even Dragon Ball Super's manga, also supervised by Toriyama, that millions of years are things that are still canon to the Dragon Ball universe and multiverse, as it should be. It should even be billions. And that's because things like Buu take place 5 million years ago, Moro takes place 10 million years ago, when he first appears, that is. And that would all mean that Elder Kai, like 75 million years old at least, which also means Beerus is 75 million years old at least. So it's a weird situation where thousands could easily be replaced with millions, especially for things like Deguess saying when was the last time he saw his brother, and you just say millions of years ago. I think it's much easier and cleaner that way, and it avoids any of the headaches and timeline. Like 1,000 years ago you saw your brother, or thousands of years ago you saw your brother, even if we're being generous. I just think it doesn't work out, and it makes the continuity even harder to fit together because it doesn't even really work with the original manga and the amount of time that passes across the span of the universe. This is another one I talked about in the main channel video, so I'll try to be relatively brief here, and that's the Demon Realm Dragon Balls. According to Glorio, these are the original Dragon Balls, and I actually have no issue with that. Gloria wouldn't know of any Dragon Balls before the Demon Realm Dragon Balls, so him thinking these are the original Dragon Balls is fine. I would make the conversation and statement a bit more skeptical, maybe have someone say, well, maybe Dragon Balls existed before yours, or something along those lines, just to help illustrate the point that they might not actually be the first set of Dragon Balls in existence. But obviously, if they are the first set of Dragon Balls in existence, that doesn't work with the lore that was presented in the Universe 6 tournament about Zalama and the Super Dragon Balls. Now, we know the Super Dragon Balls are spread across Universe 6 and 7. I feel like people forget that detail. They're not just in Universe 7. They are in both Universe 6 and 7 when they scatter. These planet-sized wish orbs were apparently found by the Namekians in Universes 6 and 7. They were mined and learned how to basically recreate them. They reverse engineered Dragon Balls. Now, some people misinterpret that all Dragon Balls were mined originally from the Super Dragon Balls, and that's where they come from. But I think the idea is more so that you can create Dragon Balls after learning how to reverse engineer them from the ones that were mined from the original Super Dragon Balls. Because that's the only way it makes sense, since Namekians can just create a set of Dragon Balls. Now, the issue here is basically that's just underexplained. And because it's underexplained, it makes it difficult to follow. You have to headcanon that the Demon Realm existed. There were no Namekian Dragon Balls. The Namekians just didn't have them. Then the multiverse was created. Someone named Zalama appeared. Whether he's related to Namekians or not, we don't know. But Zalama appeared and created Super Dragon Balls in Universes 6 and 7. Now, these universe numbers might not have been in place at that point, but you get the idea. Universe 6 and 7 were paired universes, and they shared a set of Super Dragon Balls. This would all still be in the time where travel was allowed freely from the Demon Realm to the outside worlds. So you could have the Namekians fly out into Universes 6 and 7, stumble across the Super Dragon Balls, and mine them. Eventually, maybe learning to reverse engineer them and create their own set of Dragon Balls in the Demon Realm. But specifically, have Neva be the one who learns to create little, smaller sized Dragon Balls for the Demon Realm. And that kind of works, but again, without it being explained in the series, it feels like we have two different origin stories for Dragon Balls. Now, which one do you prefer? Doesn't really matter. I think it's more so we want everything to sort of fit together. You might like Neva being the progenitor of Dragon Balls more, or you might like the Zalama idea and mystery that we'll probably never get an answer to if we're being honest. But either way, I think these Dragon Balls really need to be explained more in detail if they wanted this series to be connected to Dragon Ball Super. All right, and for our final two, we have first Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta. Now, this should be obvious, but Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta has a big issue, and that's the My Bulma scene. There is no world in a fight where Goku would have used Super Saiyan 3 that Vegeta wouldn't, while enraged, while protecting his planet,
he
while
realized
protecting his wife. I just see no way.
He just realized the stamina drainage, I guess, but still.
To explain this, other than, obviously, Daima wasn't written yet. But that doesn't help us when trying to have something fit into continuity. So I think the real answer here is twofold. One, and it's not my favorite solution, but you could just have him use Super Saiyan 3, notice the weaknesses, notice he hasn't adapted to it, and it doesn't work well for him, and he swears off it. Again, I don't think this works too well, even if you say have Goku make fun of him for copying Super Saiyan 3, like at the end of Daima, and then he swears off using it, because it just doesn't work with the idea that he needs power in a moment of anger and frustration against Beerus, and he doesn't tap into everything he's got. It just doesn't really sit right in the story. So the real answer here is just have him have Super Saiyan 2. He doesn't need Super Saiyan 3. They did it because they weren't giving him Super Saiyan 4, I think, so they wanted to give him something instead of having Goku be 2 steps ahead. But I do think him having Super Saiyan 2, have him fight Tamagami 2, have Super Saiyan 2 be more than enough for Tamagami 2, and then Tamagami 2 gets his power up, and then it becomes a more even fight, instead of actually the more, I feel like, boring, one-sided Super Saiyan 3 fight we ended up getting. Obviously, this would change things for Goma and the power scaling of the series, but I do think it is better that he doesn't get Super Saiyan 3. Listen, he had his opportunity and window to get Super Saiyan 3. That was probably the Beerus fight, but Toriyama seemingly decided against it when he was rewriting Battle of Gods for Toei. So, hey, I don't think adding it in here helps anything at all. And now, the one you've all been waiting for, the most obvious one. How the hell are we going to make Super Saiyan 4 work? But honestly, it might be one of the easier ones. It's definitely easier than Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, and that's because it's such a unique transformation, you could have it just be tied to certain things. The first, and probably the most obvious that you're thinking of, is just make it something never unlocked for Goku. Now, I do have some issues with this, but if you just have it be something that never unlocked for Goku and it disappears afterwards, fine. It's not something he has permanently, kind of like the Tamagami power boosts seem to be, and thus he can't tap into it at will, and he just sort of moves on from it because he couldn't figure out how to do it on his own, and it might not even be possible to do on his own. The main issue here is, how do you make it work for adult Goku? Do you have Neva use it again on adult Goku? Do you not have it with Kid Goku just so it's only with adult Goku? It makes it a little bit harder.
Yeah.
So I think an additional detail is just making it tied to the Demon Realm in some way. Maybe the energy of the Demon Realm or the space that it's in creates this atmosphere that allows him to transform differently. Maybe you could even have the Demon Realm be tied to Blutz waves in some way, the thing that turns a Saiyan into Ozaru's. So maybe that could overcome this transformational barrier and allow Goku to tap into this more Saiyan primalistic form, Super Saiyan 4. Whatever it may be, I think tying it to the Demon Realm, tying it to a character unlocking it, just obviously separates it from the main series. And why doesn't Goku bring it up in the fight against Beerus? Well, because he doesn't have access to it. And he doesn't even think Vegito would beat Beerus. And Vegito, we could just assume, is stronger than Super Saiyan 4 Goku. Fine. That actually works decently well. So yeah, Dragon Ball Daima could have been canon if they really wanted it to be, but I don't think that was that.
Okay, I kind of agree with all these takes because, like, you know, Dragon Ball Daima was cool, you know, she had great fights, but yeah, there was a lot of, like, how can you mess up when the Super's out? How can you mess up when Super's out? So I don't think they intended this to be canon. Maybe, even though at the end they said it's going to tie in, so I'm pretty sure it'll tie in eventually. But yeah, we'll see. Only time will tell. Hopefully they'll bring Super back soon. And anyway, I'll catch y'all next time. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Check out the last Carthu Dojo video right here. Check out another you might like right here, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.